You see, every once in a while, you just need some familiar to break a little bread, have a conversation, and Poobie Atkins, the incredible mayor of this amazing community of Midland, a slice of heaven, her pizza, and then you end up at the St. Anthony Club, and you think, this must be heaven because it doesn't get much better than this. So what I'm going to do, Nick Ravel is here. He's the guy that put all the pieces of the puzzle together, and I'm going to let him introduce our cavalcade of stars, and then I'm going to do what I do best. Talk. Nick, take it away.
Thank you, Ron.
You're welcome.
And thank you so much for coming down.
Happy to be here.
Well, I want to introduce to you one of my best friends, Sam Rosecombe, class of 1976,
Sammy.
football all-star.
I gotta pay him.
We also have Mr. Paul Anthony, class of 1962,
62. That's
football
right.
all-star. We have Vito Monac, class of
67.
Thanks for your help.
Moving up a little.
We also have Bill Marciniak, class of 1971.
And
We have Mike Tank Travelli, class of 1973. And Tom Masters, our vice president here at the St. Anthony Club, class of 1982.
all right, listen, if you've ever wondered how an entire community could end up on a football team a long way away from, well, this place that is Beaver County, he's going to begin with that story. Give me that picture. So here's what I want you to do, young lady. Come in close on this picture, and then you tell the story. Go ahead.
That's a picture of the guys from Western Pennsylvania. Most of the guys are from Beaver County, out of Tarkio College in Tarkio, Missouri. It's from 1971. From left to right, the back row is Paul Lupo from Mohawk High School, Melvin Myers from Blackhawk High School, Bruce Potts from Southside, Bob Johnson from Glassport, Leon Lefevre from Beaver Area High School, Ron Johnson from Glassport. The other guy that I said was Ron Johnson, his last name is Kingston. He's from York, PA. And the last guy in the row on the top right is Joe Lamenza from Elwood City.
All right.
The bottom left is Joe Greco from Elwood City. Myself, number 18, Bill Marciniak from Midland. Nino Riccio from Elwood City. Jerry Laurel from Newcastle. Ron James from Newcastle. Dave Polakowski from Beaver. And Cuddy DeMarco from New Brighton.
My alma mater. There he is, the great Cuddy DeMarco. Now, how in the world did this happen? Explain this to me. There's your picture. Go ahead, talk.
Well, when you fool around in high school and don't do real well with grades, your picks are kind of limited. So I myself had a lot of offers to different colleges, interest letters, put it that way.
Right.
And Tarkio came in, and knowing that Dave Nickelwood went there before, I thought I'd give it a shot. So it's located in northwestern Missouri. Bruce Potts and I became good friends. I had a lot of friends from Southside through Legion Baseball. And so we got together and decided to go there. When we got there, unbeknownst to us, it was like homecoming. It was Little Beaver County. So that's basically how we all got there together.
All right, now 1973. So let's talk about Midland. 1973. Mill's still going. A little bit of a rumbling here or there, but no one ever thought it would go away. But the whole idea was go to Lincoln High, do your deal, get the degree, and go into the mill. So what was it like in Midland in 1973? Really, when you think about it, about a 5-year swing was the glory years kind of winding down in Midland. So what was it like on Midland Avenue in 1973?
It was awesome. Just everybody got along, black and white, Mexican. we had a really good time. You know, a lot of Italians, Polacks, and Serbians, and the coaches were great. We were all from Midland, and some tremendous athletes.
So Midland football, back when you were in school, did it ever even come close to what basketball was like in Midland? As far as fan participation, support, community?
Yeah, I think when I graduated in '82, and school closed in '85,
Right.
'84. But I mean, we still had, it was still the tradition it was back in the '70s. We had good crowds at the basketball game. I played basketball, football, baseball. Had good crowds at the football games. You gotta understand, my '82, I only had 36 kids in my class, graduating class. So it was tough to have a football team. We did. We went 500. So we never practiced because we didn't have enough. We didn't have 22 kids to practice. And so basketball, same thing. I played for Kowski just like everyone else probably did. And we did the same thing.
Listen, Joe Hamilton, who was actually coaching for a cup of coffee,
Coach me.
told a story once, and you can verify this, 1967 grad. That is, when you beat East Liverpool down there.
That's right.
Did he actually make you?
No, actually, it was up here.
Okay.
It's up here.
Up here.
Ray Peduzzi.
So tell me about that win. It was supposed to be like the epic win for
You could not get into town because of the mill. Half was East Liverpool, half was Midland. You couldn't get close to the field. They were standing around the fence 8 or 9 deep.
How'd they ever let Joe Hamilton go?
Joe went on his own. We went 9-1 that year.
Who was some of your teammates?
Rich Mayher. Hey. There he is.
All right, we got another video coming up in a little bit. Go ahead.
Richard Mayher was Jimmy Smith,
Right.
Aaron Golding, Chuck McShane, Glenn Humbert, Sierra Robinson. We beat East Liverpool that year. Was rated number 1 in the state of Ohio.
All right, listen, why don't you just tell everybody who walked into the room, Nick, because if I don't, people are gonna be wondering, so tell
Yeah.
them.
Absolutely. Greg Hill, class of 1973. And one of the brothers of the tremendous legacy of Sim Hill.
Who's going into the WPIAL Hall of Fame. And we're gonna talk about that coming up in just a little bit.
All right.
So Paul not only was a force on the football field, he a sophomore, my dear friend Bernie Vukovic, a senior. So we're talking mid-60s, you go on to become a police officer in this town.
That's correct, yeah.
What was it like making that step from the football field into that cruiser and on that beat representing law enforcement, and sometimes have to come in here and tell one of your classmates, look, don't you think you've had enough for one night? So what was it like?
You know, at that time, it was very easy. Everybody knew each other in this town.
Right.
If you had issues, they were minor. We didn't have murders at that time. I think the whole time I was on the police department, we had one, and that was over a domestic dispute. I was, I think, telling Vito when I was a juvenile officer here. And the whole time I was juvenile officer, I think I took 2 people to Allen Crest because they were incorrigible and their parents couldn't even handle them. Most of the time, I would go up and knock on the door and say, Mr. Monac, here's Vito, here's what he did.
And
it
the
was
story.
taken care of. It was all done.
Right.
That's the way it was. We had 31 bars and clubs in this town at that time.
31.
31. Yeah. And it was a nice town. Though. Don't forget, we had 6,000 people working at Crucible Steel, 3 different shifts.
We had a few hotels, didn't we?
Oh, yeah. So, and there was a bar in each one of them. So, yeah, but it was interesting, and I'll tell you, the people down here, their hearts are this big.
Still are.
At that time. Yes. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
All right, talk about this club that we love and want to promote, and want more people and younger people to become members. Great food, familiar conversation, sporting events, social hall, St. Anthony Club, the legendary St. Anthony Club.
Well, we're rolling, we're keeping the tradition
You are.
going. We've been able to maintain paying the bills here and keeping a strong membership, both active and social. And our members, we speak volumes of. Without them, the club can't make it.
So how lucky is this guy? He's listening to my radio show Sunday, my cooking show. Coons Market, we have one right there in Hopewell. We'd love to have you stop by sometime. He's having coffee with his mother, and I thought to myself, what I wouldn't do, have a cup of coffee with my mom. Isn't that, your mom's in what, 9th decade now?
Say amen to that.
I mean, that's amazing.
Yeah.
She's taken care of you all these years.
Yeah.
She still is.
She
Good for
still
you.
is.
All right, 1976. Let's talk about Midland, 1976. Some memories from the football days for you, sir.
They were following Mike and Mr. Hill and Marciniak down the line. That was more or less our era right there. They were early 70s. I was going up through 76. We're still pretty solid. Big crowds at the games. And my junior year, no one scored against us all year except Mac. 7 points in the last football game. So that was one thing that we were very proud of. Now, with sickness and injuries, we lost another battle that year. Just the quarterback was down, running back was down. Just a combination of things.
Was it Stubby? Who was your coach?
Stevie was coach. Played with people like Chuck Gomez, Nino
Oh.
Stevens, Mikey DiMaggio was on the team, Louis Chirino, John Kane, Carl Harmon. So we had some. I don't want to miss anybody that played and stuff like that. Just got on top of my head and stuff like that. Tommy's brother Gerard was on the team. I had my brother on the team, but the big players were really Gomez and probably Dino Stevens.
Barry Stevens.
Chucky Gomez was maybe one of the best ever in Beaver County. Like top 5, would you say? I know it's a stretch.
All sport.
Yes,
You know,
basketball.
basketball.
Yeah, right.
He was a good baseball player too.
He did that too.
Yeah.
Can I just interject one thing?
Yeah, do whatever you want.
After we beat East Liverpool,
Right.
Coach Peduzzi, we were in practice.
Yep.
He told us, you guys beat East Liverpool, I'm gonna take the game ball and walk it down to East Liverpool and put it at the diamond. And he did it.
I know. I remember Coach.
And I was in the lead cruiser that took him in front.
No, that was police protection. So
Yeah,
we got out of
yeah,
East Liverpool.
and I did that, yeah, Ray Peduzzi.
Ray Peduzzi.
Yeah.
Hey, speaking of East Liverpool, we got to give a little former mayor, Mr. Bricker. And I didn't know this until the other night. I'm with KDKA. And I see this story. So next thing you know, I'm telling everybody on the world's most powerful and first commercially licensed radio station. So you had a Bricker marry an Isley in 1920. Now listen. So 10 years later, they opened an Isley store there. So that has to be like in the very early stages of that great brand, and to think that it all started there. And now, 96 years later, the Bricker family is deciding to exit, and there's a new ownership there, and they're going to continue to thrive with their catering and food. But from where we sit here at the St. Anthony Club, do you realize that the Isleys really name, the stores, could have actually started just a few miles from where we are? That's pretty amazing.
Wow, I didn't do that.
No.
Yeah.
So it's got to be in the timeline somewhere.
We had one here in Midland.
Yeah, Midland.
Well, I told him we need to bring one back. But listen, speaking of that, go ahead.
Tom, come on.
Come on in.
Come on in.
Come on in. Have a seat.
Grab a seat.
Grab a seat. All right. So who is this? Over here, young man.
This is Tom Flasko.
Hey, Tommy.
Tom brought Pratte.
Nice to meet you, sir. Have a seat.
Tom was class of 1963.
Yep. Yep.
You're
He
out
played-
of
he played
college,
ball
yeah.
with it.
So who was your football coach? Tell me about that guy.
Okay, well, Charlie Pulse, I played under
That's what happened for people.
Petchel my first year.
Everybody got a story for Paul.
Yeah.
So let's
Yeah.
go everyone.
I got
go,
one too.
go, go.
I played under Petchel, John Petchel, who was a former Pittsburgh Steeler,
Yeah.
my first year. And while playing for him, I got some good advice off Carnell Lake's father, Herb Gene.
Gene.
Yeah. And he took me under his wing, and he was a senior, and he gave me some good advice. Very stern advice sometimes, but it was good. But anyway, he went, and then Tom can echo on some of the things with Charlie Pulse. There was no gray area. Okay, that was it. Oh yeah. There were rules that were, and it was not 110%. You had to follow his rules. And we were talking about the cages that he built. We had to play under
Chicken wire.
to stay down low.
Well, you know who else used to do that?
Yeah.
Woody Hayes, I think. That's probably where he got the idea from.
Probably.
Yeah.
Where everybody probably has.
Well,
Yeah, yeah.
On Charlie is.
Charlie had a 2x4.
Yeah, Mr. Pulse was the phys ed teacher.
Yeah.
So we didn't get to play for him, us guys right here, but we have experienced him. He was definitely, he was a legend.
I had a story too.
Yeah, no.
Pulse, he was the phys ed teacher. And I I missed some classes, so I needed, you know, to
Right.
get from a C to a B or something, you know. And he looked at me and he went like this, you know, because I asked him, what can I do for you? So I came back, can't do this now. But I came back to school the next day
Yeah.
with a gallon of homemade Daewoo red wine. Walked right into school, walked right into school and gave it to him. So that was like, I fondly remember that, you know, you know.
It became one of his favorites. What do you remember about that coach?
That coach?
Yeah.
Brutal.
Pulse was physical.
Physical.
We had a drill that we called bull in the ring.
Bull in the ring, yeah.
You got knocked the hell out of you.
Really?
One guy in the middle, surrounded by what, maybe 8, 9 guys,
Yeah,
something like that.
yeah.
They'd call out a name and you had to turn wherever that guy was at, or you get knocked on the ground.
And guess what? There was no water breaks either, by the way. Just wanted
Sponge,
you to know
sponge
that.
in a bucket. And everybody used it.
Yeah.
We're going to kind of shift gears, talk basketball. Mr. Hill is here. Listen, tell me about I know Carnell Lake played for the Steelers, the Lake connection. His father on that team in the 60s or no? And who was his father? Was it?
His father was Gene Lake. He played football and basketball.
Okay.
And then he went to University of Utah,
Now, what year would he have graduated?
1961.
Okay, so he was a little bit.
Wait a
before.
minute. No, 1960. I'm
Was there a
sorry.
Herb Lake too?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
Okay, that's
Herb
right.
was the cousin.
First guy.
They were cousins.
Yeah, he went to University of YSU. He went to Youngstown State.
So
Herbie played
we're going to focus on the 65 team because of your brother. It's a pleasure to meet you, brother. I've been a big fan of your family for a long time. And I still think, everybody talks about Norm Van Leer, great guy, defense, Chicago Bulls before Michael Jordan, longtime broadcaster. But Simmy Hill truly was one of the greatest and most gifted athletes, bar none. And I've talked to a lot of people, the Sheffield family and others who were here then to ever come out of here. And Chris Pipkin's a friend of mine, obviously son. Big fan as well of him and the whole tradition of the Hill family. But let's just talk about Midland in general as far as basketball talent is concerned. So I'm doing a little homework, probably the only time I've actually done homework, because I really care about this community. But you mentioned Chucky Gomez. You think of Roosevelt Kirby, George Green, I mean, Ricky McGlure, Kuzma, Olkowski, and it just goes on and on. So, and Nick Alloy, his family. Now, Nick has told me stories that when we shared a couple of cold ones at the Riviera Lanes, which I still miss to this day, that when the overnight crew at Crucible was working in the summertime, they would come out, have their lunch, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, turn their automobiles around, put the headlights on Midland Avenue on that court, and watch the young men play basketball early on a hot summer morning. How in the world, though, explain this to me, is this much basketball talent come out of one little community? Go ahead.
Am I supposed to have that answer? Well, when I was growing up, we really didn't have too much to do other than play sports.
That was it.
Yeah, and as far as, my playing basketball, I was expected to, I didn't have a choice but to play. I was probably better in football than basketball.
Right.
But, my brother Danny and I, we really didn't have a choice but to play basketball. That's what we were expected to do.
What part of Midland did you grow up?
4th Street area.
Tell me a little bit about your brother. Never met him. Obviously, I wish I would have. But just tell me about his mindset and who he was and the love of the game. Go ahead.
Simmy. A lot of people don't know this about Simmy, but he probably could read a book in a day.
No kidding.
Very intellectual person, very quiet person, until he had a couple beers in him. He was a fun-loving guy. You wouldn't even know he was in the room unless, once again, he was. If he was partying, you know he was in the room. Because Simmy, he was somewhat of a clown, but a nice, what I remember about him, he's a nice, quiet person. He always say, Greg, he used to always say, I wish I had all the education you had. I went to college for 9 years. I said, but you know what? I can't read a book in a day and remember everything that I read. And he used to always say, I wish I was like you. Not as far as the athletic ability, but the other attributes that he had that a lot of people didn't know he had. And I know that when he left, when he stopped playing with the ABA, he went over to play in England and France and several countries over there. And you know, one of his good friends turned out to be Marvin Gaye.
No kidding.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Wow.
Ron Poe James.
That's a crew.
Mercury Morris, Dwayne Thomas. All those were his buddies.
Same era.
Same era.
Obviously, Stilton High Spire, many years I did a television show for Rhino. I always made sure we pulled out the 8mm to show that film and footage. The greatest of all time.
Yes.
Listen, I just want to know, how good was your brother, Simmy, on basketball?
You know, I was 9 years old, you know, when Sammy was a senior.
But that's old enough to comprehend what was happening.
Real good.
I mean, I know what a lot of people have, you know, said to me, that he was a special ball player. And you know, I talked to Kuzma, I talked to Okowski, I talked to Alloy. I've been all over this country, and people know of Midland. People know of Norm Van Leer, Sidney Hill,
Right.
and that 1965 team. You know, they tout that team as one of the better teams, you know, ever came out of the state of Pennsylvania.
So the name Simmy, why couldn't I have been named Simmy? This Bob and Rob, I mean, now Simmy's a name. Where'd that name come from?
We actually have several Simmys in my family.
Great name.
My family's from Georgia, Americus, Georgia, and Andersonville, Georgia. And I think there's a total of 4 Simmys in my family. My Simmy's a junior. My dad was Simmy also.
Who's your mom and dad? Who's your mom and dad? Mom stay home, dad work in the mill? What?
My mom worked on occasion. My dad worked over in Crucible. You know, like most dads in Midland.
You know, you were talking about the mid-'80s. 82, you graduated. I remember being with Nick Trombetta. He was the coach at Midland at the time in '85.
I graduated 73.
No, him.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I know. So everything is kind of coming to an end. The curtain's coming down. And I was kind of melancholy. I mean, it was a sad, sad time. And I was down there doing the Nick Trombetta show with my little cassette recorder, and he just said, somehow, some way, it'll all work out and things will come back. I'm so proud of what's happening in Midland right now. But what was it like when that curtain was coming down, Crucible was shutting down, and people were leaving, and jobs were being taken, and Midland Avenue was drying up, nothing but tumbleweeds? What was that like, living through that after being 63, 73, 82, I mean 67? I mean, when Midland was such a hustling and bustling community, and the late Mayor Eli Korak was my dear friend, everything that happened in Beaver County through Midland. So what was it like when things weren't going so good?
When the steel mills started bottoming out, late 70s,
Right.
I was a part of an effort in Beaver County called the Midland Center for Career Development. And that effort was to assist dislocated steel workers and helping them to decide, you know, next steps. You know, job training, skills upgrading, relocation, you name it. So we tried to, you know, assist individuals in taking that next step. One of the things I found out is, I'd say 60–70% of the guys that worked in the steel mill didn't have an education. So we sent a lot of guys back to, you know, get their equivalency degree. We sent a lot of people to skills upgrading training before they can go to a program like airframe and power plant mechanics, electrical engineering, mechanical something. You know. A lot of these guys, when the steel mill dropped out from up under them, a lot of people were repressed. I don't know how many people that my staff sent to treatment for depression. When you see in the paper that a lot of guys met untimely death, that means that a lot of those guys committed suicide.
Yeah.
And it was sad. It was sad for me to be a manager of a program that, you know, my primary objective was to sit down with individuals and their families and tried to map out a strategy that they could use to continue life, basically. You know, a lot of people think that the steel mill would ever shut down. So, you know, people had 2 cars.
Even when the movie van.
People cars.
Yep.
2 cars and a boat and a house. And a lot of people lost a lot of things. A lot of people lost
But
their
are you
houses.
excited, you all, what you are seeing now in Midland? Obviously, we always want more, but at least there's life on Midland Avenue, Nick. I mean, at least there's a heartbeat, right?
Oh, you
Just
want
a different type of life.
Yeah.
Because a lot of it's, you know, Lincoln Park, Cypress School, right, yeah, that's,
If it wasn't for Nick Trombetta.
yeah, Nick's,
Amen.
I was good friends with Nick, he graduated '73 from Cleveland. Yeah.
The difference was we were a community then. I don't know about now. You know, I come down there because I have a tidbit of family and friends down here. And the word community, we had every sense of the word community, we had that here. You know, because I know a lot of my friends that I went to school with, you know, they were at my house or I was at their house. They were eating neck bones and I was eating pasta. You know what I'm saying?
It's a melting pot.
Yeah, absolutely.
I figure at that time, when in the old regions of the state, 1 to 200,000 still clubs. What do you think?
Oh, yeah.
What was that?
Yeah,
About that
$250,000.
$250,000 still
Yeah.
jobs are going. What made me realize it was so different what we were doing. My dad used to get mad for all the miles I put on the car to go to work.
Right.
Most of our parents walked right down the hill. Where now, I spent most of my life, in Lakeland, where I had to drive to Pittsburgh every day.
Well, see, that's why this cracker plant, Royal Dutch Shell, what they're doing with the meds and eds, is so important. You've got to give people an opportunity to have generational wealth jobs, that paycheck can go from one family to the next, and those checks go into Main Street, which makes the lights come on. Before we go, everybody gets a chance to talk about a memory or two of Midland, and we're going to go close up on everyone, young lady. Tell everybody who's filming this incredible video, doing a fantastic job.
This is actually my neighbor, to be honest.
Yay!
Thank you.
Great job.
She's a 9th grader at Beaver High School.
The most
Or Lincoln
important.
Park. Lincoln Park. That's it.
Well,
Yeah.
come on. Hometown discount, Lincoln Park.
Yes.
By the way, they know a little bit about basketball there too. Hey, before we go though, and give everybody a chance to say goodnight. St. Anthony Club. This is the main reason I'm here. Always looking for new members. Great place to hang out. But this is a labor of love because of from one generation to the next, and we baby boomers are about ready to hand the ball to the next generation. So hopefully 50 years from now, some guy like me or a gal will be down here just because they love Midland doing something like this to promote. But talk about this club.
Well, again, we're trying to carry on a tradition here that's been going on since 1938. And we're running out of people, you know, as far as at one point in time, our club, it was mostly the old Italians that came in, and then they had children and it expanded. Now we're pretty much running out of young Italians.
All right, before we go, we're going to come in tight on each and every one of these men, and they're going to introduce themselves just like they're the starting lineup, and they're going to give you a memory or two. So first, last name, class of, and what you love about Midland. And you're up first. Go ahead.
Thomas Masters, class of 1982. Probably the best memory for sports will be when I was a senior. I played for Ed Orkowski, and Monaca was our rivalry in '82. They won the state championship. They lost one game that year. We beat them at Monaca. So, I mean, back then it was still a tradition, you know, still big time rivalry like it was in the 70s. They beat us in overtime at our place, so we actually should have beat them twice. So that's like a big memory. I still give my friends from Monaca a little jab, and we go back and forth all the time.
The Fleming.
Fleming, yeah.
Bunky,
So
Bruce.
that was it.
All right.
It was great.
Go ahead. You're next.
My name's Tom Flaska, 1963 class. My memories are with 60 to 63 basketball teams, the workouts that Hank Kuzma used to have us do, I think a lot of their playing ability, their stamina, that small teams could outplay these other teams because of the physical condition
Right.
they were in. And when we went to practice, all we did was run
And run.
and run.
Run. Next.
Mike Tank Travelli, class of '73. It was just, it was great to play sports. I did track too, and it was really strange. I was a really good javelin thrower, but we never had a javelin, so so I had to go up and be gracious with the team. Yeah, the other team would say, "Hey, can I practice and use your javelin?" And that wasn't a big sport at Midland, but I did pretty good there. And the other thing I wanted to touch on was what Greg was talking about, what you're talking about. Like I was very fortunate. I had asthma real bad when I was young, and living in a steel mill, so I couldn't work in a steel mill because it was just too polluted. So I went to college right after high school, and then got my degree in pulmonary therapy and X-ray radiology, and worked in a hospital for about 6 years, and then I finally got a chance to work in Crucible, and I worked in their medical department, which they just tore down. I did all the, ran a hospital part of radiology, X-ray, pulmonary stuff, and it was just, and then I was there 11 months and I lost my job too. So, but the important thing, like what Greg was talking about, a lot of these, like my brother worked 9.5 years, never got a pension, and it was hard for, I was fortunate, I had an education, so it was just great to be there the 11 months just to experience the mill life.
Mr. Hill, go ahead, sir.
I was very, very, very fortunate, to grow up in Midland. I say I would never trade Midland for any other town to grow up in. I got 9 years of college education, 4 degrees. I sat right next to Nick when we were working on our doctorate degrees. I didn't finish, but I did it. There's no place like Midland on earth to grow up in.
I agree.
If you were a kid, all these guys, I know all these guys around here, and I always considered them my friends, and I know they consider me their friend. So,
Well, hey, thank you so much for doing this, and congratulations on a family member going into WPI.
and my nephew Dion said he was the best shooter in the family.
Next.
Yeah, I'm Bill Marciniak, class of 1971. I've got quite a few good memories, and I think would be remiss, since we were talking about sports, to mention Dave Jakes and Louis Steele, who started our Little League football programs when we were back in the day. 1964 red and white football team went undefeated, unscored upon, and won the championship playing against the All-Stars. That's one of the memories. The other is my senior year, 1971, the 1970 football team went undefeated, 10-0, and the 1970-71 basketball team won the state championship. So that's a pretty good record for one class. But like Greg was saying, the community, it was a great community. They talked about all the bars and the hotels and everything. I think we had 5 car dealerships in Midland. Anything you needed or wanted, you didn't need to leave town.
Nope.
So Midland was a great place to grow up and to be a part of.
No doubt. All right.
Hi, my name is Vito Monaco, and I think my most memorable time in town was I was good friends with his brother, and I was even better friends with Norm Buki Van Leer. They were my best friends, and they treated me like I was their best friend. And we spent a lot of time together in Chicago and in Midland. He would stay at my house many a night when he visited town. And I miss him dearly.
All right, Paul, center stage.
My name is Paul Anthony, and class of '62, and I have so many
Look
good...
into the camera now. We want to see that face, right?
I have so many fond memories of this town. This is probably the best town for big hearts in the world. Late in the '60s, and just to give you an example, my late wife got very ill, and succumbed to a kidney disease some 3 years later. Within that 3 years, this town rallied around her to raise money for a transplant, to get dialysis machines, which at that time were half as big as this table. And everybody knew each other. Everybody knew each other's problems. They helped out. And at that time, I always made one thing. I said, I can never repay all these people for what they did for me and my family, but I'm always going to try. And when the mill shut down in 1982, I happened to be in a position as shipping port to employ a lot of people that wouldn't lose their homes and lose their cars and be able to sustain things for their family. So this is all a big heart. Good stuff.
Sam Rosatone, class of '76. Nick and I graduated together. So I think in a nutshell, the biggest memory, we got to see a lot of basketball and football between '72 and '76 with the names, you know, the Snappies, the Gomez's, McClures, all the way down the line, that everybody played every sport. And that was the real camaraderie of everything, because the teams weren't that big. Tom graduated was 36. In '76 we graduated 64, and so they were awesome. Everybody went both ways. Basketball teams, that's how it was. And my best memory was when I was a senior, he finally got me my football helmet. Paul actually coached us when we were younger.
All right, Nick, you're up.
Yes. Nick Ravel, class of 1976. I'd have to say the two things that are most memorable to me in this community. I looked forward to two things. One was the 4th of July parades every year, and probably even bigger than that were the championship parades for the basketball teams we had. It was like none other, an event that stays with you forever.
Listen, I'm just going to close it by simply saying my best memories of Midland. Are you ready? Michelle Joseph, Darlene Francis, Roxanne Newts, and there's one more. What do you think it is? Come on.
I'm assuming
Annie Eluzio.
And
Listen, the most beautiful people you could ever meet of my generation, who befriended me many years ago and welcomed me into this town, and my late friend Tony Silly, still someone I think about every day, and all of the families and the people that I've met along the way, and the opportunities that I've had to come to a place like this with Nick, and I've known Paul forever as well. And obviously these names, especially the Hill family, bring nothing but pure joy to my heart. So what's it all about? I've been the luckiest guy in the world. Why? Because I've got more than one hometown, and I consider Midland to be one of them. So on behalf of all of us here at the St. Anthony's Club in the beautiful community of Midland, Gendon, salute, and please step up and continue to support what they're doing down here every day, because future generations have to understand the people that paved the way. It's your Pratt Pack busy day, but now it's time to munge and say good night.
Thank you, Rob.
All right.